Hi everybody. I'd like to talk to you about your annotated bibliography assignment. In case you didn't notice, today we sent out an email message with an updated due date for this assignment. It's due 1 week later than it was originally due. So the new due date is Sunday, October 29th at 11:59 p.m. And just so you know, the learning management system will not allow us to choose midnight, so it has to be 11:59 p.m. And just a couple of notes about this assignment. This is part of a series of assignments that eventually culminates in you writing a literature review. And it started when we had the literature review discussion assignment, when you had to read a literature review and talk about that literature review in terms of the literature review checklist that you were given. And that was to let you know that that checklist is what you're going to be using when you write your own literature review at the end. Then you wrote a brief concept paper, which was sort of a proposal for what you wanted to write a literature review about. You came up with research questions in that concept paper and made a plan for selecting at least 12 scholarly sources for your annotated bibliography. Now, in this assignment, you are going to actually write that annotated bibliography, which will be based on the same research questions you've already decided upon in the last assignment. And if you already chose sources, then this assignment will go fairly quick for you. If you haven't chosen your 12 sources, then you'll have to spend some time finding those. Essentially, you're going to use the plan that you've already created to write this annotated bibliography. And you'll need to make sure that it stays, of course, in APA style. So first, how should this assignment look? Well, it's an APA style Word document. And of course, it has to have a title page. And the body of this will be quite a bit different than a regular APA paper that you write. It'll just have the title, an introductory sentence or two, and then it'll go straight into your annotated bibliography. And you will use the research questions from your concept paper in this paper. And you will use those research questions as your headings for the paper. And then underneath each of those research questions, you will have the sources, 3 or more sources per research question, designed or chosen specifically to help you answer that question. And overall, your entire paper must contain at least 12 sources. You can have more if you want to, but I really recommend that you stick with 12 because if you have more sources, it just takes a lot more time. If you do go over 12, try not to go over by more than 1 or 2 sources if you can. So also this paper will include a references page. Now that references page will only include references that were used to help you write your annotated bibliography. The references listed on the references page should not be duplicates of those already in the annotated bibliography. And I'm looking at this document that I'm filming right now. This is coming directly from the assignment inside of Canvas. So what I'm looking at now, you can find inside of Canvas. Now, another question that some students have at this stage is, what is an annotation? And there are lots of things you can find on the internet that will help you to figure out what an annotation is and what it looks like. We'll talk more about it in just a minute. But it should be about 150 words, and those 150 words should be crafted specifically to help you answer the research question that that source was selected to answer. Now, 150 words is not a hard and fast guideline. It can go longer. It could be as much as 250 words. I would encourage you to stay with less than 250 words per annotation, but even that's a little bit fuzzy. If it needs to be 250 or 260 or 270, that would be okay as well. But each annotation should be written according to the research question that it is intended to help answer. So an important point is an annotation should summarize the purpose of the title, main ideas, and contain information that will help you to answer the associated research question when you write your final literature review paper. Okay? And as you look in the assignment, you can read the rest of the directions, which are pretty specific. And I won't go through those. But what I would like to do is I would like to take a look at an example of an annotated bibliography. So disregard on this example here, you won't specifically have the topic, but you will have a title, and I'll show you that in a second. You won't have a thesis statement, so don't worry about that. But you will have your annotated bibliography, and as far as the annotated bibliography portion of this example goes, this is correct. So you will have an APA style citation for a source, such as this one. And then underneath that, you will have your annotation, somewhere between 150 and 250 words, maybe a little teeny bit longer if it has to be a little bit longer. And in this, you will provide yourself with the basic information about that source and what you need to know to help you answer the research question that source is designed to help answer. So in this particular example paper, here is one source, and here is its annotation. Here is another source, or a reference, whatever you want to call it, and here is the annotation for that. Okay, so you can see they have a few more examples here on this particular paper. Now what you might want to know next is, well, what goes in that annotation? What do I choose to put in there? How do I write that? Each person will choose some different ways to write that, but my general guidance is what comes in the assignment, which is a general summary of the source, summary of that article, the key things in that article, and then what you need to know from that will help you answer your research question. So here is an example. Okay, here's a hypothetical paper. Perhaps my paper is about blended learning in K-12 education. Okay, this is a hypothetical paper. And in my paper about K-12 learning or K-12 blended learning, here is an example of a source that I found. Right, so here's the APA citation. And for that source, I have an example starter annotation. This is kind of the generic beginning that I could probably write regardless of what the research question is. So I might say this study examined 4 participants, 9th grade teachers of different subjects, algebra, biology, English, and health/physical education, as they completed an 8-week online professional development course, designed a blended learning course within a learning management system, and implemented the course. All the participants taught in the same school in the United States in an unidentified state from May through the end of the following January, sometime between 2013 and 2015. The authors were interested in how the participants designed blended learning as a result of the professional development, how the designed classes were actually enacted, and how design and enactment differed across the 4 content areas. Design and enactment varied across the 4 cases. So that was a summary of that particular study, and it contains most of the elements that anybody would need to know to have a general understanding of what happened, including the numbers of participants, what was done with those participants. In this particular case, it says that this was a study of 4 participants, and what they did. And this particular annotation, this is the first part of the annotation, is 114 words. 114 words. Now, let's say one of the research questions I have in this paper, this is just an example, hypothetical research question, What if one of the research questions was, what content are others including in professional development of K-12 teachers to conduct blended learning? Right? That's a possible research question that somebody might write in a paper about blended learning in K-12 education. So if that were the research question, if I were using this source to answer that research question, I might add, in addition to this generic annotation starter, I might add this information. The professional development design included 17 teachers participating in an online professional development, and I just abbreviate that PD, designed to deepen understanding of terminology, practices, and standards for K-12 online learning. As a capstone experience, participants created an online course shell for the first semester of blended learning. And then it goes on to say what happened in Module 1, and in Module 2, and in Module 3, and in Module 4. And this would answer the research question of, what are people doing in their professional development with K-12 teachers in order to conduct blended learning. So that's an example of the end of the annotation. So this part of the annotation, the starter, plus this part of the annotation fully addresses this research question. And that's 126 words for this part that's specific to the research question, 114 words that's sort of generic about the study, and altogether, if I added both of those together, that would be a 240 word annotation. Okay, let's change this a little bit. Let's say I have a different research question. Let's say I'm using this article to answer the research question, how do K-12 teachers implement blended learning? Right? That fits in with the overall title of the paper, Blended Learning in K-12 Education. I might want to know, one of my research questions in that literature review might be, how do K-12 teachers implement blended learning? And in addition to my annotation starter up here, I might add this additional information down here to specifically address this different research question. 3 different models of blended learning were implemented. A, individual rotation in algebra. B, the flipped classroom in biology. C, station rotation in English. And D, station rotation was also used in the HPE class. In the algebra class, 88% of all online blended activity was designed for taking formative assessment quizzes and remediation, but when enacted, these materials were used for summative assessment only. In biology, the 98% online portion was designed for content delivery and assignment collection. It was enacted as designed. The English course was designed to facilitate discussion and support from graduate writing partners and participants and was enacted as designed. Finally, the HPE class was designed to deliver course content and facilitate online discussion of health issues, and this course was partially enacted as designed. So if that were my research question, how do K-12 teachers implement blended learning, my annotation would include this part here, the generic information about the study, and this part here, which is 114 words plus 129 words for a total of 243 word annotation. So that's an example of an annotation. Now, the next thing you might want to know is, what will my paper look more like? And here is part of what your paper would look like a little bit. Whoops. Yes, here we go. So in this example, I have here my running head, example annotated bibliography, and my page number, and then here is the title of the paper with my name on it. Then I scroll down to the start of my annotated bibliography, and the title is Example Annotated Bibliography Assignment Paper, an annotated bibliography. And remember, that's what the assignment asks you to do, to have annotated bibliography somewhere in the title. And then here's what I encourage you all to do. for your annotated bibliographies. And this part comes directly from your concept paper. Write some kind of an overview sentence such as this one. This annotated bibliography includes sources to help answer the following research questions. A. What is an annotated bibliography? B. What should be included in an annotated bibliography in an annotation? And C. Where can I find helpful annotated bibliography examples? Okay, so that's your introduction. That lets your reader know what you're going to do and how your little annotated bibliography is going to be organized. So your first heading is your first research question. Underneath the first research question, you're not going to have any body text. You just go straight to your first source, and then you will write your annotation. And then you would have at least a minimum of 3 sources per research question. This example that I created here doesn't have 3 sources. It just shows you what one would look like. But underneath each heading for each research question, you would have 3 sources. So another example heading here, what should be included in an annotation? Remember, that came from the second part of my introductory sentence. What should be included in annotation? That was B. This particular source comes from Ashford University. It's a sample annotated bibliography. And then I have an annotation about that source. Here's a third research question in this example, helpful annotated bibliography examples. Here's another one here. There's the source. Oops, actually it's 2 lines. And then here is not a complete annotation, it's just a couple of sentences, but you understand the annotation would go underneath there. Then there's nothing else in the body other than your research questions and then your sources and your annotations. And then at the end, you have your references. And remember, your references would not include things that are listed up above in your annotations. These are additional sources that were used to help write your annotated bibliography, but that you did not annotate above. So in this case, and I'll upload this paper to you guys, in this case I found 3 example published annotated bibliographies that you could look at. Now the examples that are published are not necessarily in APA style because journals don't, even if it's an education or a psychology journal or any of the other disciplines that use APA style, journals don't necessarily carefully follow APA style. In fact, many journals have their own styles. So you won't find these written in APA style, but in my examples here, these are in APA style. So the source here, the reference itself, and then the annotation for the source. So I will upload this example annotated bibliography, and I will upload the example annotation for you just so you can see the sorts of things that are included in it and how one particular source could actually be used in multiple different ways depending on what it was trying to do. And then I also have for you an example, and this example, this is an example paper, so this comes from Purdue, from the Purdue OWL. But here's a sample annotated bibliography. It's very similar to mine. Here you have the source right here, the reference, the source, the article, and then you have an annotation. Source, annotation. Okay, all the way through. I'll just go ahead and scroll down and you can see. And then in this particular example, they included the references that they already had up there, which you're not going to do, but it just shows you what they would look like formatted with only the reference. So I will upload that as well as some additional material for you guys. If you have any questions about your annotated bibliography, please contact me and let me know, and I'd be happy to help you out. Remember, these annotations are designed to help you to answer the research questions, which will be a huge help to you when you actually write your final literature review, because you'll be able to synthesize this information together to answer your questions. I hope you all have a great day, and please use your extra time wisely to write your annotations. The better your annotations, the better your final paper will turn out when you write your literature review. All right, have a great day.